Do 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 do. Yes, these are the new stings for the. No, they're not. Hello, everyone. Hello. Happy summer. We're still summer, aren't we? August. Sky is blue over Norwich. Oh, that's not good, is it? And we're back for a new season of stuff on the On the Ball podcast. This is our live recording. So this isn't actually the podcast. We haven't started. We'll start recording that in a moment. And it's just me and Steve tonight. So therefore, here's Steve as well. Steve, you've come properly dressed. Well done.
I guess I thought as it's summer, it's okay to wear a t-shirt. So I'm going with 2018-19 vibes because nice. Similar feel at the start of this season. So similar outcome, right? That's what I'm channeling tonight.
I think that's fair. Yeah, good. I feel like it's a bit dark in here, but hopefully you can all see my face.
And they're the vibes that you're channeling.
We are definitely channeling those vibes. So yeah, thanks for joining us on wherever you are joining. I am now going to have a quick little. I need to do my Facebook shares, don't I? It's been so long, I've forgotten what I do. I was going to check to see if it actually is broadcasting on Twitter, given quite a lot of things have happened on Twitter since we last broadcast. But no, it does seem to be there, Steve. Your face is looking good.
It's X now. You've got to send X's on it.
Or is it one of those things where it's like still called Twitter, but it's written down as X, like Prince?
Yeah, the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's all very exciting. I'm going to share this on. What are you excited about, Steve, in terms of this podcast? Well, I just share this.
Well, to be honest, as ever, I live for the comments. So please send your comments in. Michael and I were just discussing that there is bound to be stuff that's happened over the last, I think it's 3 months, isn't it, since we played Blackpool? So the last time we did a podcast would have been 3 months ago. There's bound to have been stuff that we've forgotten. I've tried to make as many notes, remember as many things as possible, but 100% there will be some weird and wonderful stuff that happened over the summer, some of which we may not cover, but if you can give us a prompt, then we'll try to lend an opinion on it. That's what we normally do. It's basically condensing 3 months into
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
It's not going to be
20 minutes. And yes, if we do miss anything or get anything wrong, let us know. You're kind of like the authority, you guys watching now. So you tell us where we're going right or wrong, as I'm sure you always would. Yes, indeed. I've almost shared this. So we're almost there, and then we can get going on the recording. But yes, as it is only myself and Steve, get as many questions and comments in as you can, and we'll do what we can. We've also got some special guests lined up who you will definitely know because you'll listen to this podcast. They're very special to us, and we'll have their predictions as well. Right, I've done that. So I reckon we crack on, shall we? And we'll see how much I struggle to remember how to do this stuff. Yes, it's that one. Onwards we go. Right, I've got the script in front of me. We're ready to go. Ready to go, Steve?
And you are.
Well, you say that. Have a lovely podcast, everyone. Enjoy it. Let's go. Happy preview! Hello all and welcome to edition 135 of On the Ball, the annoying wasp of Norwich City podcasts. I'm Michaeljbailey. Joining us for the pod is Norwich numberwang chief at NCFCnumbers, also known as our very own Steve Sanders. We also have some very surprising special guests. They might not be that surprising. And we have you guys. And together we will work through summer swerving, prediction paradise, and championship chances. Steady on. Now's our chance. Come on. Let's make a pod. Yes, I'm hoping that by the time this podcast reaches its 54th year, I will have incorporated every line of On the Ball into the script and probably brought a new level of cringe to proceedings. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Welcome. New season, new vibes, new hope, new football, new kit. Oh, I didn't mention the kit in the script. We'll get to it. How are we doing, Steve? How are you?
I'm very well. I thought the annoying wasp of podcast was a nod to our kit. Actually, that's where I thought you were going with that. I mean,
Good point.
it's obviously yellow and green, but the hoops are a bit waspy, aren't they? And I'm looking forward to this new level of cringe as well, on top of the one that we've already managed to cultivate. So we'll see how that goes. How's your summer been?
Overpromise, underdeliver. That's the mantra. My summer has been good, thank you. It has been busy. It has been. I've had some time away. I've shut down from a few things, and I've busily done other things. And it feels like the summer has gone like that. I'm very much enjoying the Women's World Cup at the moment. What a fantastic tournament that has been, by the way. And yes, been on the odd adventure with my family, which is nice. Steve, have you had fun? Have you gotten away?
I am gottening away next week, so that's my trip. I've timed it for our first away game of the season, so I will be at the whole match. But no, this season, to be honest, like I know, obviously we all love football. That otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here spending our evenings talking about it. But I find that like the summer of sport, it is almost like the best time when there's no football on. It's like when sport is at its best, and it always takes me a while to get around to the idea of a new season. And it very much feels like, the Barbie Oppenheimer meme that's doing the rounds. It feels like Bazball is very much the Barbie, and Wagner Ball feels like the kind of greyed out Cillian Murphy with a hat on, a part of that meme. But I'm feeling cautiously optimistic after a
very cautiously,
kind of,
very cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
I love it. Well, it's all good. We want you guys. It's just me and Steve for our opening preview podcast, although we do have some little contributions coming along. Very exciting. You guys watching live, we do want you to contribute. Please do get in your comments, your questions for us. You can do that as you watch live on YouTube and Facebook. And we are still, I think, streaming on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. That's exciting. So get in touch. I'll try and keep an eye on the notifications, but Steve will do a much better job of that himself. And if you are listening in the future and not live, then please do email your comments and questions to us. You can do that by emailing twitterkers@icloud.com. Twitter, KERS @icloud.com. Well, we know that at this stage we like to crack on with what will be this season's first headline act. Yes, and this season's headline act is the fact that the summer has happened, and that was a lot of stuff. I guess each summer Steve gets immediately drawn into the transfer business, which has been interesting. Norwich got their 4, I think it was, free agents in nice and early. Made sure they got those done before Stuart Webber confirmed he was leaving. And then a couple of signings since, which have been quite interesting as well. I do know who they all are, but I don't really want to go through them all by name because we probably all know who they are by now. But what has caught your eye over the incomings first, Steve?
I think. Sorry, and I'm going to sort of move. I'm going to take the incomings and the outgoings as a whole, and say that there was probably not as much kind of churn. I don't know if that's the right word. There wasn't as much turnover as I expected, and I kind of initially found that a little bit concerning. But the closer we get to the season, the more I feel like this is not a bad window, actually. I certainly feel more optimistic about it than the previous one. I think Barnes seems to be the standout. I mean, my feeling on the Barnes transfer is that it could go one of two ways. Either we get a highly motivated player who has won, I think, 4 promotions in his career, 3 of them to the Premier League, who knows this level brilliantly and has played at a higher level and will be one of the best players on the pitch most times that we play. Or you get someone who's coming to the tail end of their career, probably one of the highest earners in the squad, who's kind of looking for one last payday. Watching the Olympiacos game, I feel like we're going to get the first version of those two. He looked excellent to me and kind of what we've been missing. I think Duffy is probably, given the injury to Hanley, which wouldn't have been kind of legislated for before it happened in the Blackburn game in March, April, probably about as good a signing as they could have possibly made in that department. Again, may have spent money and in terms of wages, and jury's out on whether he's a good player when he doesn't have Lewis Dunk alongside him. But if they can keep him fit, again, I think the signs are good. Stacey, don't know a huge amount about him, but again, solid. And Science and Fastnax, I think, are going to take a little bit of time to kind of embed themselves in the squad. But I think the 5 senior signings they've made all have positives about them. And I've just had a little check, and I think I'm right in saying that we've now got players in our squad. Basically, at least one of our squad has been promoted in 8 of the last 10 championship seasons. So we have at least one player from the last 10 championship seasons that's gone up. So that's a hell of a lot of positive experience. Obviously, the profile's a lot older than it was, but that's the route we've gone down. And I think as that is the route we've gone down, I think they couldn't have done too much better, is what I would say. What's your feeling?
The age profile is really interesting because the starting 11 against Olympiacos, which I think a lot of people looked at and thought, oh, that'll be our starting 11 for Hull. The average age was well over 28 for that. And last season, most of the average ages of the 11s were around sort of 25, I'd have said. So that's a considerable difference. Let's I'll rattle through them quickly. Ashley Barnes, I feel like he'll be motivated. He seems like a really great guy. The worry I have about him is that the team around him is not as good as the Burnley team around him last year, and there's only so much he can do on his own. Shane Duffy, I think, is a really clever signing in a lot of ways, but he hasn't played a load of football in the last 3 or 4 years. He hasn't got through like more than 30 games, I don't think, in any of those seasons. So it's asking a lot. Jack Stacey, I really, really like the look of in pre-season. Like, he's really caught my eye. So I'm excited about what he can do. And I really like the look of him. Borja Sainz looks really raw, but interesting. And I was really kind of excited about seeing him play. So that's a real shame that he's out. He got injured in his second training session. Don't know how, but it was an ankle injury. So, hopefully he's all right. It sounds like he might be back a little bit earlier than people had kind of feared, which would be really good. Big couple of weeks coming up in terms of whether he does get back quicker. Callum Fisher was playing for Bromley in the National League last year, and he seems to have really caught the eye in pre-season. I think probably deserves a little bit of leeway, I think, because he hasn't played anywhere near championship level, and that's a massive step up. So, but it's good that he's impressed in that way. Vicente Reyes, probably how his name is perfect. Very, very talented young Chilean goalkeeper, and apparently a really, really good signing. Maybe one for a few years' time. But I'm curious what that will mean for Tim Krul. There's already been the odd link about Tim Krul maybe ending up somewhere else, but I'd love to see if anyone, it kind of depends on who offers to come in for him, which I guess is why Max Aarons and Milot Rashica are kind of still here as well, because Galatasaray want Milot, but it appears that they are yet to offer enough money. So I guess we're just waiting on that, which doesn't seem ideal for anyone. And Max is now a European champion with England's under-21s, and he's still here, which is interesting as well.
I feel like watch this space with the Southampton. I know the Southampton link but just Livramento basically looks like he's on his way to Newcastle. That means they will have money. That means they may be looking for a right back. Southampton was just one for me that I thought would fit like a couple of months ago for Max. I wouldn't be surprised. I know nothing. I never know anything, so it's purely conjecture. But it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either. And I have been on my best behavior since the end of last season, because no one wants to hear me bringing out realities. This is the exciting time of the season where everyone gets, excited and has hope. I've been fascinated with where Max ends up, and I will struggle to buy the whole he's outgrown us, he's needed to move on, he needs to be at a blah blah bigger club to do whatever, blah blah blah, and then he ends up at Southampton. I know they've only just been relegated from the Premier League, but that I find would be more of a statement of where Norwich now find themselves than how much Max has grown. But there we go.
Well,
I
think if Max is still here at the end of this window, I think it would be fair to say that that's because nobody has come in with the kind of money that we would want for him, or even come in at all potentially. I think we're past the point now where we are holding on to him as a prized asset. That presumably is what the signing of Stacey was for. They don't look short at right back potentially, even if he goes. So if Fisher is kind of the real deal. So yeah, it does feel like the time would be right for all parties, assuming there's a suitor. Just quickly on the age profile. So if I did a quick look before at the average age of the players that we signed in each of the summer windows to bolster the first team squad. Nothing massively surprising about this really, but I checked the last 7 windows. So the 7 windows that we've had under Stuart Webber. So 2017, the average age was 24.3. 2018 was 25.7. So quite old for the promotion year. 25.8 in 2019. Then the next 3 years goes 22.4, 22.7, 22.3. So that's pretty young for first team players. And then this season, it's gone up to 28.4. So that is a huge difference in terms of the policy and the players that we're looking to bring in. We've kind of tried the let's get them in young and develop them while they're still playing for it. But for us, it hasn't really worked. So I kind of agree with going a different way, or at least let's try something different, as the last couple of years have been a bit of a write-off, really.
I think the tricky thing is that you bring in the experience to help bring along the young guns. That's the idea. But of course, if Max Aarons gets sold, say Andrew Omobamidele gets sold, there will only be so many young players that are involved in these 11s. So it won't so much be about these older players bringing on the younger ones. It'll be just an old team with some players coming through. But, it will be interesting how it develops. And these teams are always kind of a shifting in terms of their dynamics. We've covered everyone who's arrived off, haven't we? I've just got my list here. Jack Stacey, Shane Duffy. This is part of my preparations, obviously. Is there anyone
we haven't really talked about Christian Fastnacht in great detail, and he's the one who we've spent some money on. I mean, my impression of him from the Olympiacos game, I know he only got 45 minutes, is that he might take a bit of time to get used to it. But I think he'll be an interesting one because he seems to get goals and assists from that area. He's got a bit of height about him, which maybe implies, and his goal against Toulouse was a header from a corner, if I'm right in saying.
I think, indeed,
which is not necessarily what you expect from a right winger. So might be a slightly different profile to what we're used to. So I don't know if you. I mean, I presume you know more than me, Michael. So
I would definitely not presume that. I would not presume that. I think the interesting thing for me with that is that he's quite clearly a David Wagner signing because he worked with him. I feel like that's probably the signing that was at least helped in terms of the money for James Maddison, the add-on that sort of came through from his sale. And there seems to be that David Wagner wants wingers that are going to come in and inside more and affect the game in terms of sort of central chances. Which I think Fastnacht appears to be quite good at. He's an experienced guy. He's never been away. It's a big move for him, and I hope he settles. That's the kind of thing I think that will probably dictate how successful the move is. And yeah, I'm really interested to see him play more because ultimately he got a few minutes against Toulouse, having literally just arrived, and then Olympiacos kind of passed him by a little bit, I thought, but that's probably understandable. He has had a full pre-season under his belt, so hopefully he'll be ready to go and crack on. And I think I had a quick chat with Chris Gorham for the BBC Radio Norfolk earlier today, and for me, him and Sainz are probably the kind of, actually for me, more the kind of signings that will make sure Norwich have the sort of quality that keeps them kind of where they need to be going into this season. I think if they hadn't made those kind of signings, I'd actually be a little bit more worried about them. But I think, I think they represent a decent step for what they've, for at least some sort of consistent platform to establish themselves properly into the season and get going. There you go. That was positive, wasn't it? Yes, indeed.
On the Swiss scale of success, you've got Tim Closure on one side and Josip Drumic on the other. So you've got to think that like he'll fall probably somewhere between those two, right?
Yes, somewhere between the Swiss stools.
I don't know. Yeah, two Swiss stools.
Yeah, that's fine, isn't it? That's exciting. Outs-wise, there really hasn't been anything, has there? I mean, we sort of mentioned about Milot and Max still being around. Andrew Omobamidele. I mean, slight alarm bells that we're talking about AC Milan getting involved in like lower €1 million bids, because that would be a slight sign of desperation if they were selling him for anything near that, having suggested that they turned down 20 million quid for him in January. So, and I'm very much assuming that if Andrew is sold, then he is a player they would need to replace. I think that's probably, I guess the point is it's not ideal, but Norwich appear to be doing their business in the latter stages of the window, and we'll be hoping that ramps up some of the price for these players, even though there's obviously still be hoping that they'll go, and I'm sure they need the money just to balance their books.
I mean, I think one outgoing that we probably do need to mention is Bailey Mumba. I mean, I have some thoughts on that. I don't know what you think.
Tell me your thoughts,
Michael.
Steve. Tell me your thoughts.
I'm going to be more hyperbolic than you. I mean, I get that the guy has hardly played for us, and actually also understand that he's in a position where we've got a decent amount of depth. So it's possible that he may not have played that much. It's possible he may not have wanted to be here. I'm staggered that we sold him for a reported, was it £1.5 million? Might have been less than that. You're talking about the best young player in the league below. And maybe there wasn't a huge amount of interest in him, but why not loan him out again? There was time left on his deal, I believe. So could we not have loaned him out to Plymouth again, seen how he got on in the Championship? Supposedly he's a player that likes to play at wing back, and we weren't going to play with the back three, but David Wagner might not be here next year, and he's only 22. I'm amazed that we sold him for such a low price, given that the policy of the club over the last few years has been to buy players so that we can sell them on for a profit, and we desperately need money. I'm really, really surprised that we only got that amount for him. I'm not necessarily saying he would have made a big difference to our team this season, because if he's not in Wagner's plans, then so be it. But it just struck me as not being great business. And I think we have been good at getting value for our young players, but that one just seemed like a massive misstep to me.
It's interesting you say that, because Norwich would probably say that they, without me wishing to speak on their behalf, but they would go, well, we signed Bailey for like 300 grand and we sold him for £1 million. So we have sold him at a profit. We've turned him around. He wasn't going to play here, and he doesn't feature. I mean, that's what they would say. I would still feel like you that £1 million is probably still relatively cheap. I guess if Bailey wanted to go back and wanted to play at Plymouth, then that makes things a little bit more awkward. It does seem a shame that they've sold him, but I don't necessarily think we would have seen him much this year. And he had a long contract. And yeah, I kind of probably did expect him to just go out on loan again to Plymouth and just sort of do that again. And so fair play to Plymouth for making it happen. And they seem absolutely delighted with it. And they're the ones who've got to obviously adjust to Championship life, but they've got a very good manager and they had a really good season last year. So it's a really fascinating one. Sometimes these circumstances just arise and you kind of have to deal with it. I don't know if they would have sold Bailey for that had Max already been sold or had Milot already gone and they'd already got their money for those two. I genuinely think they've looked at it and gone, well, we can get some money for him, and there's no guarantee at the moment we're going to get any money for Max. So that's probably, I think they need the money, and I think that's kind of probably why they pushed the button on it as well, which kind of was in the back of my mind. I remember writing a squad audit at the end of last season, and just writing, Bailey's had a great season. He is genuinely one of the sellable assets. He's genuinely a player someone would want to come in and buy. And I've not really ever been convinced that Max is necessarily that, which sounds ridiculous, but I just think if someone had been serious about wanting him, he'd have already gone by now. So it's a shame. I think it's a great move for Bali, and I think it's a great move for Plymouth. So
yeah, I could see it being one of those where in a few years' time we're kind of like, yeah, maybe we could have held on to him for a bit longer, but maybe he won't turn out to be the next Cafu or whatever. But I think
would be a stretch.
Yeah, but maybe there's a chance that might not happen. But I suppose the other thing is he's not kind of if I'm a sports psychologist working with the squad right now, I'm like, just forget last season ever happened. Just put it to the back of your mind and never go back there again. Mumba doesn't have that psychological scar tissue, and would have actually been a kind of fresh face off the back of a really successful campaign. But yeah, I feel like we've spent 5 minutes talking about it, which is probably now.
No, it's fine. It's a good idea to exercise it. What I would say is the problem with that positive arrival that Bailey would have brought initially was that he would have seen Jack Stacey playing very well, getting lots of minutes, and no sign of a wing back slot. And I think he probably, but I think it became quite clear if you watch what was going on that Bailey was like, this is not where I'm going to flourish next season. And I think that probably plays into it as well. So there we go. But there was one out, so he is the out. I mean, I would normally have.
I was going to say the irony is that, of course, the player who's heading out on loan potentially later this week is one who they probably wouldn't mind getting a fee for and selling. But yeah, Christos Schollis looks like he's off to Dusseldorf. I mean, fair play. We're sending him off to some lovely parts of mainland Europe, so he's at least got that going for him. But yeah, that's, oh my god, it's just gone horribly wrong, that whole transfer. I think that would make it, of our record 6 signings, there'd have been between them sent out on loan 6 times before any of them have had a contract renewed. So it's not going ideally.
That is quite a shocking stat. And the fact we just keep sending them out on loan, I'm sure it'll be fine. Yeah, I have to say the fact, and it hasn't been confirmed, and David Wagner today didn't want to talk about the actual club, but obviously it's Eintracht Düsseldorf, is it that he's been linked with? Is that right?
Fortuna Düsseldorf.
Fortuna Düsseldorf. And that, yeah, I struggle to think that. Well, it just seems like such a drop off that the German second tier is where Christoph will be operating last year. But then he was at championship team for the second half of last season and didn't feature much either. And I remember watching him at West Brom. And there was a moment in the first half where a player just ran completely off the back of him and he didn't track him. And I just looked at it and thought, yeah, this is just, that's why it doesn't, that level of maturity on the pitch just isn't there. And he'd have probably been better off had Daniel Farke not labelled him one of the hottest young prospects in European football, because that seems to have been a rod for Christos's back, which is a shame because there is clearly a player there, and I think he showed some of that actually, ironically, against Toulouse, which will probably be his final appearance potentially in a Norwich shirt for the first team at least. So,
will we see him again? Do you think? He's still got time on his deal, I guess. Has he got another year after he comes back? I mean, is there a chance that he could play really well in the German second division, at which is probably, well, it's going to be a lower level than the championship, and come back kind of renewed and refreshed?
Well, it depends who the manager is, depends how mature he is, how the season goes, all sorts of things. It depends if Dimmy's Yanulis is still here, I suppose, because they're seen as obviously that if he's not going to play in front of him, he's probably not going to play in front of someone else. The thing I don't understand is that there's been suggestions that Dusseldorf Jolis cost almost £9 million, and there's a suggestion that Dusseldorf would have an option for an option that would have an option to buy him permanently for a fee that would let Norwich recoup a lot of that. It might be true, but generally not sure I see a second-tier German team spending £7 million. There's no money. They won't have the money to pay that, even if he gets them up. I wouldn't have thought so.
Unless he's so good, yeah, that he gets them promoted and they can't do without him. But yeah, I mean, there's not really much evidence that that's going to suddenly happen. I don't think.
I don't, unless there's like a £7 million add-on. I don't really see it, but there we go. But we'll see. But yeah, so there is always a possibility that Christoph rocks up next preseason to go again. He's still got another couple of years on his deal, I think, at least. So there we go. One other out we obviously do know about now is Stuart Webber. He announced that he will be leaving the club. Don't know when. By March, probably. So that's happening. Norwich, by all accounts, began the search for a replacement at the start of the summer. So we'll see how that pans out and who gets that gig. And that's all of that business, really. Other business still to be done. Probably depends on who leaves. If anyone else leaves, then maybe they'll replace them. But I don't think they'll get anyone in if Max or Milot leave. I think they've already covered for those. And that just leaves the preseason friendlies and what they actually look like. Steve, did you watch any?
Well, I saw the highlights of a couple and I watched the Olympiacos game in full. I mean, if we were in any doubts from our couple of our signings that the level of football in Greece has dropped off a little bit, then Olympiacos came here and proved that a little bit last Saturday. I didn't think they were very good. But
yeah, they beat Rangers 3-1 a few days ago.
No way. Okay, I didn't know that. Well, maybe Todd and Kieran Dowell are not all they're cracked up to be. You heard it here first.
Yeah, quite. What I would say is, I think from their team, I think half of them have basically been away the previous season and come back. And there weren't that many regular first team starters last year, from what I could tell, just a handful. But yeah.
Okay, well, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt then. I mean, I suppose, as taking preseason as a whole, 3 goals conceded in 7 games, I think, and 2 of those were in the first 2 when we were, like, I guess, not fully up to speed and probably weren't that asked about keeping clean sheets that much, I guess. So that kind of indicates that we're going to be solid and that hopefully that's something that we can continue. And to be honest, like, it's felt like quite a long time since we've been able to say, well, I suppose the 2020-21 promotion team had that about them, but you don't get promoted very often without having a solid base to build off. So that's got to be something promising. I don't think it's going to be massively entertaining from what I've seen. I think we're probably going to have to get used to that. I think the crowd are going to have to get used to that. Well, I suppose you could argue we're pretty well trained for that actually after the last couple of years. But even if it's winning football, it's not going to be. This is going to come to a shock as a shock, I'm sure. The sort of swashbuckling Farke style. But I think we're probably at a point where, as long as it results in a team and a system that fans can get behind, and I think the signings we've made will help with that, and I don't think people will mind. Oh, and the other observation is that I had a slightly lower seat in the south stand, so I don't know if it was my angle. They look bloody massive. I feel like we've got a team of giants now. Maybe we don't, but it feels like I think maybe Stacey at right back helps with that, but it feels like we've got a real physicality about us. I'm looking forward to seeing that. No,
I'd definitely agree. I think given you sort of, no Max, no Liam Gibbs in the starting 11, and Liam's not that short, but he's quite slight. It was quite, definitely a bigger team. I mean, I haven't seen huge amounts of preseason. That's not anything particularly unusual. I've been doing this job 15 years. I've literally been to 1 preseason tour in that time. So I've missed loads of preseason lots of the times, but I've managed to go live anyway. That was 2020-21. So it was after Premier League relegation, but before, basically the second summer of COVID, where I really, you're like, well, that would have been really hard to go to. But, it was 2020. Yeah, it was the summer of 2020. It was literally that October. So went to Germany with Daniel Farker and his crew. Are we allowed to still mention his name? It was fun, and it was really good. I enjoyed it, but that is literally the only time I've been on a preseason tour and watched games. It obviously helps when the club facilitate some interviews that make it worthwhile. But yeah, I've saw the highlights and things, and I wouldn't disagree with much of what you said. I still think they look a bit clunky in attack, and I was at the Olympiacos game, and for as bang average as Olympiacos looked, it did kind of take a horribly ridiculous deflected Kenny McLean shot from 25 yards and a lump into the box headed down by Shane Duffy, where the keeper thought he was fouled and clearly wasn't. But it's preseason, and generally I find it absolutely matters not a single jot. You can watch it and then you can maybe apply some of it in hindsight once you've seen some actual competitive action. But it's very much like the Mike Tyson quote, where everyone has a plan until they get smashed in the face. And the reality is you cannot get smashed in the face until someone's actually fighting you. And that only comes from the first game of the season. So that's the exciting thing about that. And we will talk about that in a bit. But yeah, unbeaten in 7 friendlies. As you say, only 3 goals conceded, including a gorgeous own goal by Shane Duffy against Kings Lynn. So, as much as they could do, it was all good, I reckon. And I think only one, Borja Sainz is injured, and then Jakob Sørensen has a bit of an issue with his groin. So hopefully that doesn't keep him out too long, but it has curtailed his preseason. That's me sounding very solemn there. Very solemn. He is still alive. It's fine. And there we go. Yeah, I think we've wrapped up everything that's happened pretty well there. Maybe John Rowe is the only other thing I want to say. John Rowe has played Premier League football for Norwich, had a really wretched time with injuries last season, hasn't really done anything to justify the whole, way John Rowe kind of thing. But I love him being interviewed because he's clearly got something about him, and he's got a great personality. But more to the point, in pre-season, he's shown some good possibilities of affecting games, which has been really nice to see. So he could genuinely make an impact. Likewise, Tony Springett should just really do diary rooms whenever he can, because that was quite funny on the club's YouTube channel. So
Tony Gary,
yes,
good.
Tony Gary, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod. Well, just Mr. No, we'll come on to this. We can talk. We'll talk predictions. We'll talk future games in a moment. But yeah, John Rowe still not started a professional game of football, I don't think. So
really,
well overdue. Well overdue.
Wow, that would be a good sweep. When will he get his full days? No, he must have. Are you sure he hasn't started a game? Really?
Okay. Well, as I say again, this is where we come back to. Please tell us if we're wrong. But I have a feeling all his appearances have been off the bench so far. I could be wrong about that, because obviously
I feel like
spent most of last season injured when he would have started a cup game. But please tell me if I'm wrong on that. I'm sure people will. I will come to it. Mr. Jordan H says, who starts for you, Hernandez or Rowe? I'm assuming we're talking Saturday here. I think Onel will start. But I wouldn't be averse to Rowe being given a go, I have to say.
No, but I suppose the thing to say is on Saturday when John Rowe came on, it's a different affecting a game during it rather than from the start. So I could understand that pattern repeating against Hull, and that could be a spark when Norwich need it. Nell was a little disappointing, I thought, but I mean, as I say, it's last preseason friendly. It really doesn't matter in any grand context. So I think, but what might be interesting is whether David Wagner sort of took that on board, and what he decides to go with will be really interesting. But I would, like you, Steve, imagine Nell starts. But I really like what John is doing, and I think if he keeps doing what he is doing, then, and in competitive games, then I don't think the start would be very far away. That would be my view. What else have we got in the comments, Steve? Let's go through some of these.
I think a lot of it we already seem to have covered, and I think we'll start talking about other teams. Harvey Monk says, anyone weirdly optimistic given defensively and structurally we look so much better? creativity may come with Borja Sainz coming back maybe earlier than expected. And Wagner did touch on that today, didn't he, in his press conference, to say that I think Sainz initially it was looking like he was going to be out till October, but maybe not now. So that's handy.
Yes, I think the suggestion is it's a big couple of weeks coming up in terms of how he deals with his training and things like that. I mean, obviously, he's just come from Turkish football, played previously in Spain, so there'll be a bit of adaptation once he gets in. But yeah, they're really good news, and hopefully these couple of weeks go well. So he's playing, because I'm really interested in seeing what he can do. There is a piece on The Athletic about Borja. There's not been many over the summer of a Norwich subject, but there is that one, which is sorry then got injured. But it was really interesting watching his clips and seeing what he does well, and maybe where he might need to just tighten up and work on. But yes, away we go. And in regards to what Harvey said about being wildly optimistic, we will have some predictions and thoughts from some colleagues coming up.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see
wild optimism in there.
Yeah, we'll see how wild that optimism is by the end. Kevin Buller has said, "Hi guys, welcome back." Thank you, Kevin. I'm pleased with the signings, but think we need a 20-goal striker. On another note, is there any news of Rob Neiman coming on board? Have various rumours. Have you guys? To take the 20-goal striker point, I think that would be my only issue with Barnes, is that I don't know. I don't know how that Barnes, Sergeant Barnes, which sounds like as a part, should be some character in Platoon or something. But I feel like they're kind of similar, or at least they're not necessarily out and out goal scorers. So maybe Josh is going to have to adapt in order to play alongside Barnes, who I'm guessing is kind of going to be the foil. And the expectation is that Josh will score the goals, but he's going to need to hit that kind of form we saw early last season, because he's not an out and out goal getter, is he? Really, from the evidence we've seen.
No, and he does get his goals from crosses. And I look at the way Norwich are kind of trying to attack, and it all seems a bit more central. So I mean, Jack Stacey will get forward and put a ball in the box. So, but they are going to probably be relying on that. Which what I keep seeing now is how crossing isn't a particularly efficient way of creating goal scoring chances. So we'll see how that develops. And obviously they'll need a nickname, but probably BS is harsh. So we'll have to come up with a nickname for Barnes and Sergeant. Barngen.
Yeah, Bargent is as good as I can muster on the spot, and it's not particularly inspired. But yeah, or Josh and Ash, but that doesn't really work particularly brilliantly either. Oh, Blathwaite says Rowe has never played more than 40 minutes in a first-team game, Couple League. Longest was 39 minutes against Blackpool. So there you go.
Find that
and
staggering.
And therein lies the secret to getting your comment read out, is just back up something that I've said, which is great. Thank you very much, Blathwaite. And then I think the only other one in terms of stuff that we haven't already covered, but thank you everyone for sending your comments in. Steve Richer says, which new shirt do you prefer? Are you a Hoop fan, or are you thinking Angry Wasp on the kit? What's your thoughts?
Angry Wasp. Yeah, I think it's sort of, it didn't look as bad in the flesh when I first saw it, whenever it was. I thought that I saw a lot of designs that basically didn't have the hoops, so maybe just the stripe, the two stripes, one above and one below the shirt sponsor, or no hoops at all, and they both look nicer if I'm honest. But I've sort of used to it now. I wouldn't say it's grown on me, but it's just like, oh, okay. I mean, it is a pretty radical shirt, really, because I don't think Norwich have ever had hoops in their history. I don't think so.
No.
And we're in the stupid situation where, you've got hoops, and now you've got hoops going across the numbers on the back, and I hate that. I much prefer, it's like when Reading and QPR turn up, you should have a blue box or a blue background on the back so you can read the numbers properly, because otherwise you've got these silly lines making it really hard. So and I never thought I'd have that issue with the Norwich shirt, but there we go. So you know what, I don't really like it, not really, but I will. My eyes will.
You really talked yourself out of that, didn't you? Really talked yourself out.
It's just, I mean, that is it's not offensive, but I can think of numerous shots. But to be honest, I don't really like the 2018-19 shirt.
Well, and
Not
this
really.
goes back to the old theory, doesn't it, of bad kit equals good season. So maybe they've deliberately released something that's like egregious and that will end up being fantastic. Obviously, that's completely scientific and will work. So yeah,
there was the curiosity of them, you know, announcing the away kit first because of a kit clash, and then leaving that for basically 2 weeks, and then just sort of whisking out the home shirt. That's sort of what it felt like externally. I'm sure it wasn't like that internally.
I can't even remember. Is it black and grey? I can't even remember the away kit. What colour is it?
It's green with some trim.
It's green. Okay, yeah.
But, we're still awaiting the third kit, I believe. So I guess they will await the game away from home that Norwich will wear it in to then launch it. So that will be exciting.
Well, I'm going to say that's my favourite.
Yeah, well, maybe. Right, that's all grand. There are normally what we do now is things we're not going to talk about. But Bali Mumba we have already spoken about. I didn't have many because I knew we were going to cover through lots of other things. Ipswich ? Don't want to talk about that. The fact that we're going to play them. No. Well, Daniel Farker at Leeds is probably the other one, which is quite a thing. Ooh, Steve, you've gone you've stopped moving, Steve. I'm sure it's fine. Hopefully I'm still broadcasting. Yes. So, indeed. What was I saying? So we won't talk about Ipswich or Daniel Farker at Leeds. I'm just conscious that Steve has stopped moving. If anyone would like to send me a message to let me know that we are definitely still broadcasting, that would be quite handy. And I've realized that my laptop's not plugged in as well. So some good teething troubles here. Anyone want a message? I'm assuming we're going live. Steve's dropped out, which I think is fine. Yes, thank you, Alan Grapes. I'm glad you can still hear me. I will await Steve to rejoin. It's like breaking the pod. This is, go and get a cup of tea. No, don't actually. That would involve going away. Steve will hopefully join me. You can also ask me more questions and I will answer them. I'm just going to plug in my laptop so we don't lose everyone mid broadcast. And then hopefully Steve will come back on. I'll see if he sends me a message, but not yet. But I hope you've all had a great summer and everything. It's exciting. At the moment, let's get that involved. Troy McCarthy. The moment you said Ipswich, he froze. So funny. Well, let's hope it's not a premonition. Eh? Keep your messages coming in. It's all good. I mean, it's live, the live drama, and of course, if Steve doesn't come back, it's just you and me. Obviously, none of this will go in the podcast, in the actual podcast either. So yes, hopefully he's on the way. Let me plug in the laptop so that we don't lose you halfway. I'm on 27% battery. Still no Steve. Long time. Right. Bring your questions in. We've lost Steve for a moment, but Alan Montgomery has been in touch. Michael, how are you finding the extra non-Norwich stuff you're doing for The Athletic? Well, actually, Alan, thank you for asking. This does allow me to bring something up because... sorry, Steve's Wi-Fi is completely conked out, so he's going to be on his way in a tick. Something that I've obviously been asked a lot about in recent weeks, and tonight probably felt like a good way of bringing it up. Those observant of you will realize I do still work for The Athletic and will continue to work for The Athletic. I am enjoying very much hosting the daily football briefing, which is a new daily podcast we're doing, 10 minutes, really short, across all the football news every day, and I'm hosting that for a couple of days in midweek. I've been writing about all sorts of other fun stuff across the world of football, and I would like to think that most people can work out that if I'm doing more other stuff, I will probably be doing less Norwich stuff. So Steve is back with us, which is lovely. Grant, and the Wi-Fi seems to be working, so that's good. As I was saying, so yes, the season going forwards, I am still covering Norwich City. I am still covering Norwich City for The Athletic. I will still be at games. I will still be writing stories about the big stuff and probably some little stuff as well. Will I be at every game next season? Probably not. In fact, I'm not even at the Hull game because I've got to look after my 2 children, but that's a different story. But I will probably not be at every game next season, but I will be at a good number. And if there's something really important that happens, I can assure you I will desperately try and break it first, but I will definitely be bringing you and the subscribers to The Athletic the really important stuff involving Norwich City over the course of the season. So that addresses that, I hope. I know there hasn't been much during preseason, but in all honesty, it's preseason and it doesn't really matter. So we will get there. And yes, that's grand. It does also mean, by the way, this podcast, which I hope you all very much enjoy, we will probably be doing it every fortnight rather than every week. I hope that's okay with everyone. But, hopefully you'll also be thankful we're still doing it, which will be good. So that's the plan. And I think that's fine. Championship football comes at us fast. Things change really quickly. If we can give ourselves a slightly longer window, we will all make less of a fool of ourselves. Isn't that right, Steve? Oh, Steve's Wi-Fi is poorly. But I can see his face, which obviously doesn't really help with the actual audio podcast. So I think in that case, I'm going to quickly move us on to this part of the podcast, which is a bit of the late and great John Motson.
This is almost fantasy football.
Yes, this is almost fantasy football. It is time for us to listen to our thoughts ahead of the next big championship season, which obviously kicks off at the weekend. I'm hoping at some point Steve will just start talking over me, and that will mean that he can hear me and his Wi-Fi is back up to speed.
I think so. I lost you at the point where you started talking about Ipswich. So I don't know if that's a sign. It's a sign of the chaos, I think, to come. My Wi-Fi is definitely not up for weekly pods, I don't think. But hopefully you can hear me. I don't even know if you can hear me, but yeah. Well, I'm sure you filled beautifully, whatever you said.
Something like that. Yeah, I failed. Yes, indeed. Well, it's lovely to have you back, Steve. We will muddle through. Keep your questions and comments coming in if you're watching live, and we'll go through some of those. But yeah, this is the time where we can look ahead to the championship season. It looks like a really strong championship. Or it did when the fixtures came out and when the lineup was set. But now we're kind of at the start of the season. I'm actually finding I'm picking holes in a lot more of the teams. And although it's a really big lineup of clubs, I don't know who's actually in a really strong, healthy position. And I'm kind of wondering, is it going to be that strong a division? I'm not sure. I look through it and I think, okay, the 3 promoted teams bode well. But also Daniel Farker and Russell Martin, they're not really quick impact, build it immediately managers. They like to take a bit of time before their teams get going. So that leaves me with Leicester, who have got a boss who hasn't managed by himself in ages and is, there because he's been Pep Guardiola's assistant, which isn't necessarily a good thing if you're managing in the Championship. And so all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, maybe Norwich can finish in the top 6 and bring it on, Steve?
Yeah, well, top 2, seeing as you've picked a few holes in the relegated teams. I'm finding it hard to look past those 3 just because I think they'd all been in the Premier League for a reasonable amount of time. I'd say for me, I think Southampton could be the ones. I just think we know that teams that finish bottom of the Premier League can go really well, or it can go really badly the following season. We've had evidence of both sides of those. And Russ hasn't really proved himself properly anywhere yet, but I just think it's a good fit. I think the squad is quite young. They haven't lost that many players. Even Ward-Prowse might potentially stay. I think there's a good core there. The players who are moving on didn't get used that much last season anyway. So obviously we'll see how good they are because they're our first away game. So they perhaps we'll go there and win, and this will sound totally ridiculous in a fortnight's time. But they're the one to me. Leeds are the one I would be most worried about, despite the fact they've got Farke for exactly the reasons you've said. He's not an immediate kind of come in and make things better type coach from our experience. And also, I'm not convinced that the squad of players they've got wasn't just lifted to another level by Bielsa. And actually, the players that are still there are there's a few who have been middling championship players for a while who were really good under Bielsa and almost like they've fallen to their natural level. So if I was to pick a top two, I think I'd go Saints and Leicester right now.
Yeah, I think I've done the Canary Challenge today, and I think I've put the 3 relegated sides in my top 6 most definitely. And then I think I've got West Brom, Watford and Sunderland completing the top 6, but it's a bit of a, I don't feel particularly convinced about any of that.
Watford is interesting.
Yeah, why not? Well, I think that's based on Valerian Ismail, who I quite like as a manager, and I think he can get things going, but that may be completely flawed logic. What do I know? Nothing. Yes, it will be interesting. I think with the 3 relegated teams, it completely depends on the mindset, really, because if they get a fast start and they actually don't sell some players, like say James Ward-Prowse is still at Southampton and the window closes and they've won 4 of their first 5, then they'll probably walk it because they'll start going, oh, actually, this is loads of fun. And off you go. I mean, that seems highly unlikely, obviously, but you just don't really know. Really, it depends on what kind of hands the clubs are playing. And yeah, what does Daniel Farke get out of Patrick Bamford? And Sam Byram played in a preseason friendly there, I think, over the summer as well. So I don't think he's actually signed, but, it's all interesting to watch. And so that's all grand. Yeah, obviously Ipswich are back. I saw Ipswich. I think Ipswich's odds for promotion are quite similar to Norwich's.
Well, I have Ipswich to finish above us. So, and I don't know what, we may still remain unbeaten. I think the fixtures list has been kind to us in that we go to Portman Road when the season's quite a long way in. So we don't have to go there when there's this raucous kind of they seem to be very excited about playing us. And I think so to have that happen in August or September would probably not be a good thing. And then we get them towards the end, the back end of the season, don't we? I just it feels like they're on. I mean, they were supposedly playing so well at the end of last season that it almost felt a bit like when we were in League One under Lambert and just rolling teams over like we almost shouldn't have been at that level. How that translates to a season in the Championship, I don't know, but it feels like they're on an upward trajectory. Yeah, I don't, feels wrong just to say it out loud on a Norwich City podcast, but I'm trying to be completely objective about it. I kind of like their chances. I don't think they'll make the top 6, but I think they could well be top half.
Well, that's why I didn't want to talk about them, if I'm honest. But there we go.
Yeah, that was when I dropped out. Yeah. So perhaps that was a sign that I should have just left it there.
But we will see. Obviously, I'm not going to pass comment because you've already heard it once. You don't want to hear it for a second time. Should we get some season predictions?
Yeah, I mean, my Wi-Fi could go again at any moment. So let's have someone other than me talking. That would be great.
Well, you'll still get our faces for those watching live, but allow me to introduce the first of our 3 season previews. This is from the wonderful Daniel Brigham.
Requested. Where do we finish this season? Well, I think that's...
Did that start at the beginning?
Dependent
it did
on
not.
No, great one.
We're a bit rusty.
Why would it not?
Hello there, Michael, Steve, and everyone on the lovely On the Ball podcast.
No,
here are my predictions for Norwich City's 23-24
We've had
campaign.
some great teething troubles tonight. There we go. Daniel Brigham.
Hello, Michael and Stephen, and everyone listening. So, predictions as requested. Where do we finish this season? Well, I think that's dependent on how much I'll be complaining about Sargent and Barnes being shoehorned together as a strike partnership. If that does happen, then I reckon it's a brief flirt with the bottom 3 for the first few months of the season before hello mid-table tedium. If that doesn't happen, and Josh Sargent gets given a run at number 9 and shows his early season form from last year, then I reckon maybe scraping top 6. Player of the season, positive me says Josh Sargent for banging in those 20-plus goals. That takes us to the playoffs. Negative me says Sarah again for brief moments of joy amongst the general gloom. Unlikely hero this season. I mean, lots of candidates for that, but I'm going to go for whichever Ipswich player becomes the new Gareth McCauley and scores an own goal against us. Other predictions for the season, really looking forward to Daniel Farke versus Russell Martin grudge match, and my prediction is Russell Martin going right up in Farke's grill during the pitchside scrap at St Mary's. I can see, however, David Wagner outlasting both Farke and Russell Martin, but that will probably say more about Norwich City than it does about Leeds or Southampton. However, I don't see Wagner lasting the entire season, and I reckon Narcis Pelac will be interim manager at some point. Winners Leicester City, dark horses for the top 6 or even higher, Stoke City.
Beautiful work from Daniel there. We haven't actually mentioned Narcis Pelac, who is a new first team coach, recruited from Huddersfield, but he hadn't worked under David Wagner. Completely clean sweep. But interestingly, he was basically putting himself forward for head coach jobs during the summer and didn't get the Blackpool job. Is now at Norwich. And he definitely seems to be like someone who, let's just say it doesn't go very well. David Wagner is relieved of his duties. You kind of do feel like Pelac would sort of be the one who'd be like, yeah, I'll look after the team from here, guys. So, that seems like a plausible suggestion.
Obviously, great to hear Dan's voice. I think it's fair to say we've left the wild optimism stage of the podcast well and truly now. So I'm hoping that we can pull it back. By the way, not heard these predictions yet, but
I have.
Okay,
we haven't left it. We haven't left the wild optimism permanently. I can.
Thank God. Well, who have we got next then, Michael?
Well, next, let me bring you the wonderful, and I don't think he asks a question in any of this. Or quiz question. It's the wonderful Ryan Livermore.
Hello there, Michael, Steve, and everyone on the lovely On The Ball podcast. Here are my predictions for Norwich City's 23-24 campaign. Right, I think Josh Sargent will finish Norwich's top scorer this year, and he will be player of the season as well. I don't think Norwich will necessarily have an unsung hero per se, but I think Liam Gibbs will have the biggest breakthrough of the year, and Jack Stacey will be the best summer signing. I think Norwich this year will finish with a rather bland top half finish, not really flirting with relegation or indeed looking particularly capable of a substantial top 6 push either. I do unfortunately think that Norwich are going to lose to Ipswich for the first time since 2009. I think it's genuinely very possible. Sue me. Also, throughout the season, Norwich are going to change from their loose 4-4-2 to a more conventional 4-2-3-1. And I think that's because the single man pivot, or the one we were using anyway, isn't that sustainable across an entire championship campaign. And I think as a result of that, they're going to find that they're a bit short in the deeper midfield areas. And that is where a lot of games are going to be lost to this year. On Saturday, though, I think it will take just 15 minutes for an unironic get it forward from the City stand. So there's that. I also think at some point this season, Ashley Barnes is going to catch his reflection in an advertisement hoarding and try and start a fight with himself. So that'll be fun. During one of the 3 games against QPR this year, I reckon someone's going to have the thought, we're both playing in hoops. That's a bit weird, isn't it? I also think Kenny McLean will put his arms up apologising so many times this season that they'll eventually get stuck there and he'll have to retire because he can't fit through the tunnel anymore. And lastly, Onel Hernandez is going to celebrate a goal by miming scrolling through a catalogue in tribute to the Argos at Riverside that's recently closed down. So there we go. They are my predictions for the 23-24 season. Hope the pod's going well, guys. Speak to you soon.
I mean, in fairness, if that happens, we've had a great season because there's so much gold there.
Yeah, although real injury issues, if Barnes is taken out on advertising hoardings, that could be an injury risk, and Kenny can't get through the tunnel. So we'd have a job putting an 11 together, but we still finish in the top half in spite of all of that in
exactly
Planet Universe. So yeah,
exactly right.
I'm up for that.
Things to pick up there. What was I thinking? Liam Gibbs has signed a new contract. That's exciting.
And he's number 8 now.
He is number 8, and Josh
and Sargent's number 9.
Yeah,
the big promotions.
Indeed, it was lovely speaking to Josh after the game on the Olympiacos friendly on Saturday. He seems to have grown into himself as a person. Not that there was an issue before, but he just seemed like he sort of filled the room more which is good to see and bodes well, I think. And yes, Norwich have a new goalkeeping coach, also from Huddersfield, and he does actually know David Wagner from Huddersfield, which is Paul Clements, because obviously Ed Woodden has joined Daniel Farker at Leeds. Oh.
Before we move on, I just feel like, because it does feel like there's been a lot of pro-Ipswich sentiment, so Ollie Crook's comment is worth mentioning. Why are we so worried about a team that finished second in League One? They went on a poor run like ourselves. We could have halted our poor form if we faced Morecambe or Forest Green in those fixtures. Who knows if he's right or wrong, but I think we do need to redress the balance here, just for the sake of reminding ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's trepidation. I think the problem I have is that I experienced a lot of time where we did never beat them. And there's a generation of Norwich fans who have never experienced what that's like, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So I'd have happily never played them again. But, here it is. Away we go. There's nothing quite like sitting just before kickoff at an East Anglian derby. Well, apart from other derbies, if you're a supporter of other clubs, obviously, but you get my point. I'm sure there was something else I was going to discuss from Ryan's stuff there, but I can't remember what it was. So shall we move on to our final prediction, which is from the lovely Zoe Morgan? Go on, Zoe.
Hi, Michael Bailey. Hello, NCFC Numbers. Sorry I can't be with you tonight, but I'm at the cinema watching Barbie, enjoying the last few days before the crippling turmoil of the Championship starts again. As we learned last year, I'm quite terrible at predictions. However, I resolutely refuse to be negative until there's absolutely no doubt that the season has turned into a burning hellscape. So, as ever, I'm here with some optimism. We're going to win the league. If I have to be more realistic, we'll come second. Never mind that Leicester have signed centre-back who's in the England squad. Shane Duffy looks absolutely enormous, and what more could you want than that? I do think we might have a slightly shaky start on our way to the title, although recent history would suggest that's no bad thing. The players and the fans need to learn to trust each other again, and that takes time, especially when you spent most of last season dozing off during games. And I mean fans and players, by the way. I hope that Gabby Sarah will win the Barry Butler Memorial Trophy again, because if it does, it means he's stayed and he's played. We absolutely need him and Kenny to stay fit for the majority of the season. My unlikely hero is going to be Ashley Barnes' elbows. We've been desperate for somebody to put themselves about a bit, and while it might not be cultured, might not be pretty, I'm not averse to a bit of grunt every now and then. I have a feeling that Max will still be here until January at least. At what point do we let him have a game if it looks like he's not going anywhere? I also have a feeling in my waters that Stuart Webber's leaving date will keep getting nudged forward, and eventually we'll all have to just pretend he never said he wanted to go. This will be the year of Marcelino Nunez. He's really going to get going this season, be a vital part of any creativity we might muster. I'm failing to think of much more to offer than that. I firmly believe football shouldn't start again until September, so I'll spend August learning the names of our new signings. Genuinely though, I just want it to be a happy season. I think everyone's had enough doom and gloom. On the ball, City. See you soon. Oh, and I think Fastnacht will be good because he's friends with Tim Closer, and that's enough for me. Love you. Bye.
Well, we should just end the podcast now. That is the height of good feeling. And yes, Gabby Sarah is still here. I wasn't necessarily convinced he would be.
Yeah, that's a plus.
There we go. I mean, I think people at Norwich were convinced they'd be able to sell him for 25 million quid to a European club. So I guess by the same token, he's another player who hasn't had that offer, but that's the benefit of Norwich. Yeah,
I'm starting to think, should we do a who's going to leave first, Max Aarons or Stuart Webber? Like, who's going to be here the longest? It feels like both of them have been on their way out for years, but yeah, I know who I'd like it to be more, but yeah, I shan't say.
We've got all season for that stuff. Don't worry, Steve.
Yeah, and that's why we've not brought up any Webber comments today, because there's a few more of those to.
So was that after our last podcast? Have we not? Yeah, I suppose we've not done a podcast since Stuart Webber did his round of interviews, have we?
We haven't. So, I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to go there. I feel like that's.
All I would say on the subject is and we're going to be here for another half an hour. All I will say on the subject is I did the interview. I wrote the piece. that was from the interview. It's there to be read If anyone says stuff was taken out of context in that piece, well, to be honest, they're lying. It's not true. It's all there. I would, one day I could play all the audio and everyone would realize instantaneously that there was nothing taken out of context. And there's no agendas. I just go and speak to people and then I hear what they say and then I write it up. And that's all I've ever done. So, yeah, it is what it is. And I've really enjoyed the Women's World Cup. And also, Norwich City women are playing at Carrow Road on the 10th of September, which I would very much be at if it wasn't for the fact that I'm supposed to be running the Great North Run, which I should really start some training for. But I would sincerely suggest if you missed it last time or you went last time, go again. It was a brilliant occasion last time, and I think it's great to... there is no ceiling on women's football. Honestly, if you don't like women's football, no one cares. You're then irrelevant. Go and enjoy something you do like and leave it to the people who do enjoy it. And I just think there's so much growth in the sport. And to be honest, given a lot of men stopped most women playing football for a long time, the least you can do is shut up about it and let the sport do its thing and catch up. So, yes, I think that's all I wanted to say on that.
Amen to that. I feel like that would have been a good moment for my Wi-Fi to have gone down again and just let you go. But
just leave me in the goal.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of it. Should we do our own predictions? I feel like we can't.
Oh, I really didn't want to do that.
No, I know you didn't, but it was too bad because I had that all teed up. We can't ask Ryan, Dan, and Zoe to do them.
We absolutely know. That's all I've done for like 15 years. I don't have to do anything.
At least pin you down to where are we going to finish? I am saying, I'm saying that. Despite all the positivity, I do still think we're lacking a bit in creative areas. I actually do worry a little bit that we might, if we're going to play two up top, have we got enough strikers? I know like nobody's saying that, but I'm slightly concerned about it. And I just think that we haven't got, I'm not sure we've got a player who can break teams down, and that might count against us. So I have us as 11th. Any advance on that?
Upwards, no. I've seen Stephen Bird has messaged in The Guardian of, I believe, quoting Stephen, said, Norwich also look too workmanlike to trouble the top two. Yeah, see, this is the expectation difficulty I have. And I've gone into every season and I'm more than capable of me being proven wrong every time. And I'm aware of that very much. But I look at this group and I see a group that is not better than last season. I don't think it's as good a squad. So if they finish above 13th, which is where they finished last year, no caveats to that. That was about as good as they were, really. Then that would be a success. So I think they could finish lower mid-table. I don't expect them to finish much beyond that. And I genuinely think that a season of being a promotion contender will be difficult. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Doesn't mean I won't be wrong. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Steve. But I would also say I think they probably recruited enough so that there's not an issue the other way. And there can still be that issue if you take things for granted. So I think they should be all right.
Yeah, okay. That feels like as close as I'm going to get. Just a quick one. In 2 words, are they more likely to finish top 6 or bottom 6? Because that I think it's genuinely close. I think it's genuinely close, and I'm not sure.
So I would have said I would have said at the end. Yeah, I would have said at the end of last season when the lineup was set, bottom 3 or bottom 6. I would now probably say top 6 because I feel like there's a few other clubs in trouble. But realistically, I don't. I think they'll finish in the middle, so I don't see either.
Mega cop out. All right, well let's move on.
They are championship mediocrity.
Player of the season? Shout on that.
Well, why not? What does it matter? Dan Al-Sanani. I could see Gabby Sarah winning it again, actually, and then but actually doing it with more conviction this time around. Assuming someone doesn't offer 25 million quid for him in January.
He's feeling more and more pivotal. I'm gonna go slightly left field, and on the basis that we'll be better in defence than attack, I'm gonna say that Shane Duffy will stay fit all season and will be the kind of player that fans love. And I think Duffy will win Player of the Season. That's going to look like a horrible take in 9 months, but I don't care. And I think I agree with Zoe. I feel like, even though I don't think he'll start on Saturday, it could be a Nunez. I feel like this could be a Nunez breakout season. I really hope so. He's a fun player to watch when he's on his game. And I don't quite know where he fits into this 4-4-2, but I'm also not convinced that the 4-4-2 will last the course of the season, or indeed that the manager will last the course of the season. So we'll see. I think Marcelinho will still be here, though. So I hope that we get to see some more from him.
Yeah, he's probably going to be my curiosity of the season, really. He's the player where I feel like I know a lot of what everyone else will bring or could form an opinion on what they'll do. But Marcelino, I'm really not sure. I mean, it still sounds like he's probably still mostly not speaking in English. And I don't know. I just wonder how settled he is. And last season, he really struggled to get anywhere near to where he was at the very start of it. It seemed like the player that arrived from Chile had a real impact and had real quality and was playing with a real looseness. And with most of the time with each passing week in England, it just was sort of tightening him up. And I don't know how much of a break he's had, because he seemed to get thrown in quite quickly, having played for Chile at the end of last season as well. And he's not, I don't know, it's sort of he's there, but seems quite sort of in a similar sort of position from the start of this season, or in pre-season anyway. So I don't know what, I feel like it could go either way. I think it could really click, and I know there's so much quality in him, and I love him when he's doing that stuff, and there's things he can do with the ball that other players can't. But I don't know if there'll be too much around him, and we could just as likely get to the end of the season and just go, it's not really worked, has it? Yeah. And I think he would have interest from elsewhere, because there's probably enough in his game that stands out. So, well,
15 million pounds from Brighton, right? That's that was definitely a thing. I mean, yeah. and the flip side of that, to throw a positive on that, and I know very different price tags and everything and the expectation, but I think for Sarah to have come over from Brazil and got off a bit of a slow start, but be at the point where we're now saying he is pivotal to this team. He is the best player that we have, and is the likeliest winner of the Player of the Season award. I think it's bloody good going. And like, you consider how many flops we've had that have cost money. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. So yeah.
I think Norwich's recruitment team does, and I would say the way Gabby took care of himself and settled in, I think I just love seeing him sitting there speaking fluent English. I think that's testament really to what he has done since he's been here, as well as how he's grown into his football as well. So he's one of the players I genuinely look forward to seeing play next season, which is about to start, Steve.
I cannot wait. And I think Zoe summed it up. Let's just hope it's enjoyable, right? I don't even care if we finish in the bottom half. If we see some fun and we see some goals at Carrow Road and we get a team we can get behind, I think I'll take it.
And on that note, we shall wrap this podcast up, I think. That is it. Another season of On the Ball has begun. A welcome return for the Norwich City podcast that is already feeling tight in the groin. If you're yet to do so, make sure you subscribe via your podcast player of choice. The pod is available free for everyone on your usual player, and we stream the recording of the podcast live in video form on my social media channels. Have a search, and I am sure you will find them. Ratings and reviews, where they're prompted, are always hugely appreciated. If you want to get in touch with any questions or topic proposals, I've said here, you can sling me a direct message on Twitter, which is at michaeljbailey, but I don't know if that facility is still available because Elon is, doing his X stuff. But I'm sure you'll find a way. You're all very, very clever people, and I'm sure you'll find a way to get a message to me. Big thank you to our guests this evening, which is basically you, Steve. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you to everyone who left a comment as well. I'm sorry that we couldn't go through all of them, but always appreciated.
Exactly, and really crucial to the podcast that we get your input. So thank you for all the comments and questions. They were great. Thanks to Dan, Ryan, and Zoe for their predictions as well. We will definitely be holding them against them as we get to the end of the season, as I'm sure will be the case with ours too, Steve. Enjoy the big cook-off, and we will see you in about a fortnight. Until then, never mind the danger. And we're clear. The podcast is done, Steve. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I mean, the Wi-Fi just about held out. I don't know.
It's strong now. It's strong.
Oh
now.
yeah. Too late, isn't it? I don't know if there's an equivalent panic to Wi-Fi goes down when you're supposed to be on a podcast, and there's no way of getting it back. But yeah, who knows? It was probably the best 5 minutes of the whole thing.
I don't think that's true, but I will sort the edit briefly now. Thank you to all of you for watching. It's lovely to be back, and we will see you in a fortnight. I think that's the plan. Got to kind of figure it out, really. But you're subscribed, so that's the most important thing. Let's all wave, all two of us, and enjoy Hull and Southampton. Bye.